going on, people? It's me again, Mukai Moromo with the Lions Den podcast, and today I'm hanging out with one of my best friends in the whole world. Not lying when I say that. Othieno Chi Bey. How you doing, brother?
I'm well. I am that I am. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just going through a phase where I'm cutting out the bullshit. You know, like a lot of the shit that I used to do in my younger days that used to serve me very well.
Yes.
No longer serves me well. You know, it's like an outdated program of sorts almost. And just like our phones do,
Yeah.
I'm dating my software, my OS, my operating software, and
Yes.
it's challenging, but it's also liberating.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's good, man.
I like
It's good.
that.
Yeah, thank you, man.
I like that. I used to think, all right, there's something that I would say that's similar to that.
Yeah.
That is, as we get older, as we grow older, as most would say,
Yeah.
as we grow older, I feel like we get better at refining our approaches.
Yep.
And our body and our mind gets better at detecting the bullshit.
It's true.
You know?
It's true.
So, I mean, we always like to say, oh, when I was younger, I was able to do this and I could bounce back.
Yep.
What's changed? And people say, oh, it's because you're old and you're tired. And you go, yeah, or maybe my mind is just able to detect the bullshit that's not necessary, that is not a part of me growing, or that is not stimulating growth.
Yeah, it doesn't grow.
You know?
It doesn't grow.
So,
yeah, that's great, man. It's a good way of looking at that because I have a similar idea.
Yes.
And it's more about like refinement.
Yes.
You know, say as you get older, I feel like my energy, you know, because we're all energy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
My energy is becoming stronger. So, and like you said, the shit that doesn't agree with me, like doesn't agree with me now.
Yeah,
like when I was younger, it was easy to brush off because I didn't have any established beliefs that I had built and created myself.
Right.
All my established beliefs were external. I
Yes.
went to church and learned some shit. I learned some stuff from my parents. I learned some stuff at school, whatever. It was all external stuff. But after having like life experience, I realized my energy was very strict. And for example, I know what I like to eat. I know what I like to drink.
Yes.
I know the kind of people I like to talk to.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, in my 20s and my late teens, where I would have had more patience for certain shit, I just don't have patience for it anymore.
Yeah.
And I realized I used to be an impatient motherfucker in my 20s. And I'm getting worse. But it's like,
oh, it's okay.
yeah, it's like I'm just specific now. I know
Yeah.
what I want, you know, and I just don't have time for the other shit.
And that rings a bell because I just spoke at the what was it called? The Evolve Canadian Strength Symposium at the University of Alberta last
You
weekend.
look like you had a good turnout at that, man.
And,
like, a lot of people talking about
over 100.
They loved it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
What you're saying, it reminds me of something that I said to the audience
Right.
of 100 and something people there at the U of A in the lecture hall, and that was there's a difference between training and education. I said, like, though I would call myself a personal trainer and most would call me that, I use that term to describe me just because the standard in language was already there. But then I've now come to a point where I say I need there to be an amendment because I need to change that title so that it describes what I do better. I educate people.
Right.
I educate human movers, those who desire to move to improve the quality of life through movement and through other measures. But I educate human beings. I don't train animals. You know what I mean? Now it reminds me because I also think sometimes like there's a certain point where people are just overwhelmed with training. That's the information going in. And I think education is, I remember someone had described this to me. I'm not going to say who this individual is. I'll just leave them anonymous. But they had shared this message with me that I still contemplate to this day. And he said, education is something that comes from the inside out.
Right.
But we look at the way most people are studying, so to speak, or become scholars, is they're studying the outside and just putting it in, and they're overwhelming that.
Right.
That relationship.
Right.
And in the same light, you could say, I'm sure you could possibly, because I know you like to play devil's advocate with me a lot, and that's why we get along so well, because you provoke thought.
Thank you, man.
But it's like I could see someone like yourself, where you in your suit saying, well, what if balance was key? You know, and getting the right amount of information coming from in out, and the right amount going from the outside in. Yeah. So potentially training and education need to be balanced better by most, so that they can refine life. What do you think?
You know what? I would say, again, this is something that I've grown into. I used to believe in training because, I mean, traditionally how I came into the world, because I believe I now believe in rebirth. I believe as Mukai, I used to be, when I lived in Zimbabwe, I was Mukai, this naive, and we're all naive in our teens to a certain degree. I was Mukai, this naive young man who was born and raised in Zimbabwe, and managed to find his way to the States for university, and that grew me up a lot, but
Yeah.
not significantly.
Yeah.
And then after moving to Canada and starting martial arts, that grew me all the way up, because I started having to fend for myself,
Yeah.
live by myself,
Yeah.
make sure I took care of myself, I became an
Yeah.
adult,
So
through
survival,
that process.
yeah.
Exactly, survival, because achieving autonomy, self direction.
Yeah.
And during that phase, though, I believed in training, because the way we were grown up in this society, we're trained to execute tasks that work within the social construct.
Right.
To say, okay,
Yeah.
you go to school and you get trained in school how to read and write a certain way. You don't actually get taught how to read and write, and then also taught how to express yourself freely.
Yes.
It's like you get taught how to read and write in order to execute functions and tasks, and then you get pushed on to the next level. Yeah, the standard. And you go to the next level. You never get taught how to actually, for example, plan properly. Because
Right.
even planning, if you look at planning, we're taught how to plan based on social standards.
Yeah.
How old do you think you want to be when you get married? It's like, well, in your mind, you're not given the option to say, do you want to get married? It's like,
Yeah.
well, you need to be married by an acceptable age, because you can't be having kids too old.
Yeah.
But really, we don't need to be married to have kids.
Yeah.
You can have children with somebody, and as long as those two people are competent,
Yes.
and said person steps up and holds their own duties, you could actually have people who cohabitate together, have children together,
Right.
run businesses together, own houses together, but never actually formally got married. You can do that.
Yeah.
But we're just structured by the society in such a way that, we end up taking on the society's expectations,
Yeah.
and then, we're getting trained by the society,
Yeah.
and then living them.
Yeah.
So in my 20s, I was trained, and then now, I'm doing more of what you're talking about, which is why I love it. I'm training myself,
Yeah.
So the word is still there, but it's
Yeah.
more of an internal process where I look at the things that I want and how I want to achieve them.
Yes.
And then I compare that to what my operating system looks like.
Right.
And then I have to make the necessary changes to go, okay, these things here don't actually matter that much,
Right.
because they came from a time that's already, gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I understand why we needed certain things like marriage and other institutions that are older, because the time that they came about,
Yeah.
society wasn't what it was today.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, even just basic security, like for a man and a woman, as a team, you can do much more than you can by yourself. And if you're talking about, 2,000 years ago,
Yeah.
which is not a long time, like, you
Yeah.
needed to have a team, and
Yeah.
you couldn't worry about other shit. You had to get your shit done. So I get it,
Yeah.
but it's 2019 and we got to change. So
Yeah.
so the balance, I think, is up to the individual.
Yeah.
And now it's like you have to
Relative and it's
favor
dynamic.
more self-education
Yeah.
by educing what you want and
Well, I
and
think
bring it
where I
into
was
life.
going was actually exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
But the key word, I think, is interpreting. So like there's a point where we allow people to interpret reality for us, and then there's a point where we decide that we are going to interpret. You know what I mean? Where you take control, you are now autonomous, and you decide, well, what's happening here? Well, what attitude am I going to use to react to said stimulus? Or how am I going to take in that information that someone is sharing with me, their subjective truth?
Right.
How do I see it? Instead of, am I just going to shove it down my throat and walk with it, without
internalize it.
asking questions? Like, and that's one of my biggest concerns right now. And I know people say, usually what you see in the world is what is actually happening on the inside. So when you see problems outside you, it's because that problem is actually inside first.
100%, man. 100%,
So that's kind of where I am right now. So I guess blatantly I'm expressing to all the viewers that I'm having problems right now. You know what I mean? And it's and I'm asking and pretty much where I am right now is I'm asking myself a lot of questions. And that's what my presentation the other day was about at the U of A, was literally questions. The quality of your questions, and how are you comprehending and interpreting the information that you're gathering?
Right.
And a lot of it actually has to do with just sitting there with yourself, and potentially in silence, but the noise maybe is coming from the inside.
From inside, internal noise.
And internal noise. And that was pretty much the nutshell of my, or the meat and potatoes of my presentation was just
yeah.
talking about asking yourself questions, you know, because I feel like this society, we tend to glorify in other people's knowledge, and then right away, without taking time to marinate on that shit or anything, we're quick to try and convince somebody else of that knowledge that we were just handed over, that somebody else handed to us. And you see that in school, right?
Oh, big time.
And
man.
like
Big time.
I say, standard education, like we all have the right to education. That's, I believe, one of the articles, one of the 30 articles in the Universal the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Yeah.
I believe that's one of them. I could be wrong, but we have the right to to education. Now, free education is free if you think about it.
Yep.
Like you get educated for free in primary and secondary school. They're giving you free. Like the quality looks like it's free. It's like a free haircut.
So possible.
Excuse me. Yes. So the places where or how about this? The educational system that I was a part of.
Right.
You know,
right. Yeah.
The educational, because I know a lot of people say they know how to read and write, but I'll beg to differ. Until you're using a legal dictionary, a finance dictionary, potentially even a Quran or a Bible or a Torah,
of course,
or a Talmud, like
man.
unless you're reading those things and cross-referencing language, then you don't completely comprehend that there's a dichotomy to all terms. So if you're trying to read something in the world of the administration of justice, if you're writing to a lawyer or whatever, connecting with a notary or anybody who has some type of status at law, an attorney at law or whatever, they may be speaking the language that they're using. Don't think they're giving you connotative linguistics.
It's not
denotative. They're telling you exactly but they're assuming you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So when people say read and write, well, we have to think we're engaging in contract and commerce almost all day long. So if you don't understand the language and know how to navigate, then you actually don't know how to read and write.
Well,
and that's my subjective reality. That's just what I believe.
The truth is,
tell us the truth. Mukai's about to tell us the truth.
The truth is, most people don't know how to read or write.
Yeah.
Effectively, because it's exactly like you said. It's based on what realm you're participating.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So if we're having this informal conversation, we can cuss, we can swear, we can use abbreviated words. There's a lot of things
connotative linguistics.
That doesn't apply anywhere else. You know, and in this realm, just being understood is enough. So we can fuck with it a little bit, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But once you start to get into more technical arenas,
discourse,
you need to be just as technical as that arena requires to be.
Competence.
Exactly. Competence is the perfect word. And lately, I've been we're talking more about competence versus strict knowledge that's rudimentary and rigid and stuck in one direction. Because really, and it comes back to what I was talking about when I was talking about like that formal education is actually just training. Is you get trained in order to be able to speak and read and write at a very basic level that allows you to function in society.
Standard level.
Yeah, standard. So really, and I'm glad you talked about that, because when you talk about how we live life, like everything is a contract. Getting a driver's license is a contract. Getting a job is a contract. Doing any kind of passports, everything. So when you don't understand what those contracts entail, it leaves you in a position where you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And most people
well, there's a capacity, there's a capacity that comes with these things. So
of course,
you get a driver's license, there is something, there is a jurisdiction, you could say change, so to speak. Let's say if you didn't have a driver's license and you were operating under a motor conveyance under a private license versus a public license.
Right.
It changes the game a little bit.
Oh, big time.
So you have to be able to read and write contracts. You have to be able to read and write your movement. I say it's the same thing, and I come from one of my current jobs is I work with athletes.
Yeah.
And there's something that I say that I preach. I'm a huge enthusiast of physical literacy.
Yeah.
So how well can you read and write movement?
Yep.
But I take that out to other arenas as well, and I say, how well can I read and write in this venue, this industry, in that industry? And that ultimately comes down to defining your competency, your level of competency.
Time,
so can you read and write where you are? Can you read and write fashion? That's another thing that I do. Can you read and write Muay Thai? Can you read and write your opponent?
That is an arena.
Can you read and write the entrepreneurial lifestyle?
Everything, man. Everything. So. And it's it's almost subjective based on the arena you're in.
Yeah.
So and when and to come back to what I was talking about earlier, that's why a lot of people don't move to grow.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to understand that you don't know much.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was very, it was disheartening when I decided to become an entrepreneur, for example, and start doing all these things for myself and start learning just how much I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you walk into that arena, you think you have it all figured out.
Yeah.
Because really, when you look at it, the reason I made that statement at the beginning, saying most people don't know how to read it right, is because most people are stuck in a scenario where they're not in charge of how their life goes. Somebody else finds the work, gives you the work, then pays you to do the work.
Employee.
Exactly, you're an employee.
Versus the CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not a bad situation to be in if you understand everything that's happening where you are.
Yes.
But the problem is most people don't take the time to understand where they are. So as a result, you have a lot of people who are not happy with where they are, unsure of where their life is going, not happy with the current circumstance, but they don't know how to make the change because they don't have that, the information required. Because if you're starting your own business, for example, you have to know now how to do contracts and contract law. You have to know how to negotiate contracts and how to get paid. Because all of a sudden, someone isn't giving you a job that's outlined and on paper. You got to create your own structure, exactly, and become competent. That word, and that word really, it keeps coming up more and more and more.
Based on your competency.
Exactly, and your level of understanding. Because all of a sudden, if you are running a company and you have to hire somebody, but you can't articulate what they have to do effectively, even if you write an employment contract, they're only going to be able to understand it as well as they can understand whatever it is you're trying to say. And I remember I know this because I remember being in a situation where we hired some people, and we had a hard time dealing with said people, and not because either one of us was at fault, but we really just didn't know how to legitimize the relationship between us, to say, this is what I want you to do, and this is what I want you to give you, this is what I want to give you for it, and this is what I expect from you. And they weren't able to effectively articulate what they wanted in exchange for whatever they wanted to do. Because we're just raised in a culture where you apply for a job that's paying $20 an hour and you get the job, but you don't get the job. You don't get to show up and say, well, I think this job is actually worth $50 an hour, and here's why, and I'd like to start at $50 an hour.
That would be great.
You know what I mean? That would be great.
Challenge people to negotiate.
Exactly.
Put more skin into it.
Yeah,
Try and control their environment a little bit better than just kind of festering or sitting in somebody else's. Somebody else creates.
So and that's what I was talking about. I think everybody doesn't know how to read and write effectively because we only know how to read and write in very limited arenas. To go whenever you have traffic issues, usually you have to go get a lawyer for that. When you have legal issues, you have to get a lawyer for that. When you have accounting/financial issues, you get an accountant or you go to the bank.
And most people don't even know
what I mean?
What that implies when you do that, when you go and activate an attorney at law to represent you. It's
most people don't understand the full capacity of what you're doing. Because in essence, you're handing everything over to that person. Now is you, and they can say many things on your behalf and leave the room, and you not have to answer for them. You know what I mean? And when you understand the profundity of that situation, that's a terrible situation to be. To say somebody can get in a room,
like as soon as
whatever it is,
represents you,
because and it's happened where people get represented even in big numbers by a one lawyer who says something, and they thought something completely different, and then when they go, "Well, that's not what we meant," it's like, "Well, it's done now. That's what's happened. It's a wrap. It's on the record now. Like you're done for." So that's what I meant. But really, you motherfuckers need to learn to read and write.
Imperative.
It's important.
It's imperative.
Yeah, man.
Whatever pace you need to, I suggest you do it.
Man.
I always like to say too, it's like the mental game. Someone the other day asked me about managing stress, and I said, you know what? It was a coach, and they said, how do you manage stress? How do you work on that? And I said, there are many ways to do it, but one thing that I'll say that probably is the most important is start now. Be it start now with yourself in practicing whatever methods you need to apply to your clients, with your clients or your tribe.
Right.
But don't wait until it's too late to then decide that it's okay, I'm going to start working on stress management. It's the worst thing to do is to wait until you're in trouble. Just like, for example, same thing at law. When somebody's in trouble, that's when they all of a sudden they decide to pick up a legal dictionary and start. It's like, no, get started. Like it's
understand it before you're in it.
I remember when I got started, it just said, you know what, I'm going to make this fun. And
preparation,
I opened the legal dictionary, like Black's Law Dictionary, Bouvier's or whatever. Like I'll go to the I was just at the courts yesterday.
Yep.
Just went into the library and just
So something
picked
you
up
wanna
a
tell us,
book and
dude? Are you in trouble, dude?
no. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we're all in trouble.
We're all in trouble, dude.
If you really want me to dive deep, but I won't do that right now.
No, we have limited time. We don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
time for a deep dive.
But yeah, tell me. So I'm here sitting next to a man that I pretty much call a brother, and
Thank
I
you.
love
Appreciate that.
what you're doing. I know
Yeah.
you got some big people, some big butts in the seat, and I don't mean like I mean that figuratively.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you, why did you choose me to be on your show? I know it's weird. I'm like I'm the interviewee.
You can't come on the show and try to turn the tables, man. Anyway, the reason I asked you on this is because from the time we met, I think I believe you and I had a great connection where we bonded on multiple levels. We had a similar story. We've got a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, but we
Yeah.
had a lot of similarities. We bonded on those, and I think you have a lot of information that people would benefit from knowing. You know what I mean? And I always like right now I'm on a mission to try and educate people through introducing them to other people I think have
Yeah,
mastered
yeah.
certain things.
Yeah.
And one thing I respect about you is your ability to kind of take your physicality,
Yeah.
your physical self and chisel it,
Yeah.
to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I'm in great shape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to take care of my shit. But I remember after I started hanging out with you and kind of picking your brain on the topic of fitness and
Yeah.
stuff, I learned a lot more.
Yeah.
And at the time, before I did that, I thought I knew everything I needed to know at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I know how to lift weights. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. My bread and butter is Muay Thai and MMA.
Yeah.
Forget all the other shit. But all of a sudden, once I had this other high level information, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
I was able to do much better.
Yeah.
I was able to treat myself better. I was able to perform better just by changing little things.
Yeah.
And that's what I liked about it wasn't big things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like little things that you could tweak, and it's like, oh no, try this, dude. Because I remember I would work out,
Yeah.
hit a pinnacle, and then I'd train with you once, maybe every 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, yeah.
And just kind of pick up some shit. I'd say,
Yeah.
oh, dude, I'm having trouble with this. Yeah, let's hang out. I'll show you some shit.
Yeah.
And it was like boom, 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 and all of a sudden I've got enough information for the next 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the way. Yeah, I love that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because now it's like, I don't have to bug anybody. I can just actually work on this, try
Yeah.
it, refresh. Right, this didn't work. Try it a different way, and it worked for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
And the one thing
pleasure.
I find intriguing is a lot of people know you as the big muscular black guy, the Black Hulk.
Yeah,
But they don't know.
That I'm not black.
Shit. That's another deep
Carlton.
dive.
They're like, what?
That's another deep dive we're gonna have to dive into later. I'm definitely getting Othieno back here for a second and a third show because we got some stuff to talk about too.
Yeah, yeah.
But really, today's main focus was from our conversations. I know you were big into fitness as well as understanding your own body before you actually became an Olympian. So
Yeah.
that's really what I wanted you to
yeah.
kind of share today.
Yeah.
Like just break down that process that led you to be someone who's so intricate and purposeful about your physical appearance.
Started off with every single sport that my mother put me in. I feel like that caused me to be very cerebral.
Right.
And I definitely believe that there was some great development in the cerebellum, responsible for coordination and many other things. That I had participated in gymnastics at an early age, taekwondo, swimming. Mom even had me in riding camps for a couple summers.
So you're a move.
Tennis. I was doing everything. Power
Yeah.
skating, soccer, and I remember just being such a student of movement, like to the point where I would watch a martial arts movie like Steven Seagal, Marked for Death, or something like that, or Bloodsport,
Epic
or
movie, man.
whatever. Like even the old school ones, like
Yeah.
36 Chambers or
Yeah,
The Five
man.
Deadly
Used to love
Venoms,
those movies,
and I would
man.
practice these moves. I was like reading and writing movement at a very early age,
Right.
And I was like obsessed with it because I'd come home from gymnastics and I'd practice it. I'd see the teacher and I'd be practicing it on my own. And I think what that did was that helped me create a very good, a very high level of positional awareness, like where are
Right.
my joints in space? And ultimately my rhythm had improved as well as a result. So coordination levels were pretty high at an early age, I'd say. And the next step was I started to accumulate mass. So I started getting bigger through intra and post puberty.
Right.
And I found the weight room. So obviously you see what happened. I started growing. I started putting on, So I started putting on size, but now with the size and the more risks I was taking with movement, with weights and activities, come a greater risk for injury.
Right.
So injuries, I was never exempt from them, and I don't think human beings can ever be exempt from injury.
Yeah.
So I'd injured myself a few times, and some of them, most of them actually at the time were sport trauma injuries.
Right.
So collisions, things like that. And instead of just instead of just buying from my knowledge of self and the way I move, now I had to reach out and find out how people were fixing things.
Right.
So my focus was still the same, but now there was something that was added to the mix.
Right.
Now I started, and this was literally in this would have been like end of high school. Little bumps and bruises, nothing really big.
Nothing major.
But I said, you know what? Now I need to learn how to fix things. I learned how to grow things.
Yeah.
Now I need to learn how to repair them.
Like rehab.
Exactly. So I kind of got on that tip by myself. Meanwhile, I wanted to be a forensic scientist. That was my direction. So I got a scholarship.
We definitely have to talk about that later.
Got a scholarship, to go to school in Illinois. Did that and didn't go so well. Came home, and when I say home, Toronto, Ontario, that was home. At the time, and that I remember one day saying to myself, I need to learn about this body because my body is not doing the things that I thought that I wanted to do.
Right.
And I know that there was issues with posture that were a problem. I was having a lot of stomach issues at the time too, and people kept telling me that it was like ulcers. It must be an ulcer. But
misdiagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, I just had issues with my lower back at the time as well. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if this is chronic, if I leave this here the way it is, I'm gonna be in trouble in 20 years. So foresight was like one of my weapons at the time, and the question or the question mark was my next biggest weapon.
Right.
So I was like, why? Like how, you know what I mean? So research, application, reanalysis, rediscover, figure out what's going on. And I ended up waking up one day and I was studying physical education, teaching kinesiology at the University of Sherbrooke. And I mean, the best part about that was actually what I was doing. I was a sprinter, already recognized on the national team, competing around the world. And it was the physiotherapists, the massage therapists, chiros, team doctors. Those individuals were probably the most influential in my quest for knowledge.
Right.
On how to fix things. You know what I mean? So with all of those little footprints, it was like, sometimes I even feel like I didn't even need to go to school to study this stuff because the amount of information I had gathered and my Rolodex that I created, my network. I would go on trips and I wasn't just like kicking it and playing vids with the rest of the teammates. I was like talking to the therapist.
Right,
What did you do? Why would you do this? Why would you do that? Yeah. And
see, but I think that is a part of school. I think if you hadn't gone to university, you wouldn't have had access to that high level, you know? So to me, I think that, because I think sometimes people talk about formal education and they think formal education only happens when you sit in the class. And it's like the whole spectrum is formal education. You know? And because like, you know, it's interesting to see that, you know, you have that knowledge from those people. But I also see that you're a very analytical, well-read person who questions things. That which is also something you picked up in university to say, like, if someone tells you something, it's not necessarily true. You're gonna have to read up and research on that to confirm it's truth, or they're gonna have to give you some sort of proof to prove their theory. So it's not just a theory anymore. You know what I mean? So I like that, man. But then and then what was the next step after you got in touch with all these high-level individuals? Like what brought you to where we're at today? Like you know, the specimen we have with us here.
Shoot, like most men. Around our age, like you grow up watching superheroes, right? Like I watched WWF wrestling. I knew WWF. That's how far back I go with wrestling. But WWF to WWF to WWE. I was like raised watching wrestling. And you know, paying attention to the comics. I actually collected comics for a little bit. And watching these individuals, these heroes, I thought that the hero needed to look a particular way. So
Right.
I do realize that my training, some of my training is the reason why I look this way. You know what I mean? Because I was like fast after, like, hey, you know, I want to be fast. And then there was, hey, I actually want to be big and muscular too.
Yeah. I look. Yeah.
You know, so part of what you see in front of you today is perhaps a child who is a superhero. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I believed I was a superhero when I was a kid. I just
big
needed the
time,
frame.
man. Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, I remember thinking about it the other day. I was like, actually, I am my own superhero right now. Like, I did it.
Brother, I love it, man. I wish more people would drop that philosophy.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, because I personally think you do amazing things, man. And,
Yeah.
and you know, with what you've managed to do for yourself, just as a person, I mean, dude, because that quest took you to the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like you're an Olympic athlete. Like,
Oh
you know
yeah,
what I
that
mean?
too. That too.
We didn't even talk about that shit.
Yeah.
But that's, you know what I mean? That's what really intrigued me, was like, I was like, a lot of people started Olympian,
Yeah.
but I got to know you and I realized there was much more before that led to this, that this was just like one of the stops on the journey.
Yeah, just
You
one.
know, and there's probably many more up here that are coming that people aren't even ready for.
Yeah.
So like what's next with you, and how do people get a hold of you to kind of, you know, pick your brain and get at you for the information or whatever it is that they need from you?
Yeah, I'm making myself more available for questions on social media platforms, particularly and more popular of social media platforms is Instagram.
Right.
So you can find me at Coach Pow, COACHPOW_. Pow, persistence of a winner. Whatever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like it, man. The acronym works. It sticks.
So yeah, Coach Pow, hit me up there. Whatever, follow me or don't follow me, but feel free to ask me questions. I will get to you. And how else? What's going on with me? I've gotten into fashion. You know that, but now you guys know that. So I've gotten into fashion. These are some custom shoes that I've painted. Some Nike Cortez. Anyways, I'm doing footwear and clothing, footwear and apparel. You have a show coming up.
I do.
You've created an event where I will be participating. I will be contributing a collection to the runway so that people can preview what it is that goes on in here that ends up coming out here through my hands.
Yeah.
So October 26th, West Edmonton Mall, the fashion show, the charity fashion show. I can't remember the exact name.
It's called Vogue.
Vogue, yeah.
Vogue
charity fashion show.
Vogue.
I'll be there with my third collection. Thank you for all the platforms because
listen,
this is my third time out.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing that. I'm sharing myself with my fashion and with my fitness. So I got the two F's in my life right now that are reigning supreme. Actually, there's more than that. More F's, but food.
You know what, man? We got to get you back on here on the next one to talk about food, because that's another misunderstood area that people always really fuck up in. You know what I mean? The kind of stuff you eat, because people disregard what your second brain, your gut, your stomach, your gut health. You know, your second brain is very, very important to you. And
some even call it the first brain.
Hey,
some
knows,
reason
man?
say it's the first
Who knows?
brain.
But
they're saying don't dissect, don't disconnect it at all from. You know what I mean? Like it's part of the one.
Yeah.
You know
True.
what I mean?
True. I think we don't need to separate the two, but definitely we got to have you back here to talk more about
I'd
stuff.
love to.
Othieno Chi Bey-El, great gentleman. Check him out at Coach Pow on Instagram. Ask him a question or two. I'm sure he'll have some great answers for you.
All of them.
Thanks for joining me, brother.
No worries,
Always
brother.
a pleasure having you in here.
Yes.